Right, good evening. Thank you very much for joining us live here on the Bottom Line. The Bottom Line with the speed of thought. Tonight, we have a lot of discussions coming up, which would obviously interest you. You know that when we mention the bottom line, it is about the economy, it is about jobs, it is about the youth and the working force of the country. Earlier today, held a press conference and attacked government on our desktop. How much has been borrowed over the last 4 years. The NPP, when they were in opposition, actually attacked the NDC, which was a ruling government by then, over the debt stock of the country. What is our debt stock rate now? The NDC held their press conference this morning. We are going to interrogate that and look at the details of it. What has the monies that have been borrowed used for? How did Corona, which began last year up until now, impact the debt stock and the economy in general? We'll be getting into trade matters as well. So we have brought in experts from trade in Parliament and, of course, Guta as well to be speaking to us on our trade laws and what's happening between us as a country and that of Nigeria. After has set in, we are signing pacts with the European Union and all of the business developments and trade developments that are happening currently. How do we protect the retail industry? How do we protect the domestic industry here in Ghana? These and many others are what we are bringing up to you tonight on the Bottom Line. You want to stick and stay with us. It is going to be exciting tonight. Just before we get into the discussions for the evening, let's go around the world to look at the stories which are making round in the world of business. Stay with us.
The Bank of Ghana has maintained the policy rate at 13.5%. The move, according to the central bank, is due to the third wave of COVID-19, high budget deficits because of revenue underperformance, as well as the balance of risk to inflation and growth, among others. President Akufo-Addo has charged managers of state-owned enterprises to expand the scope of their operations to enable them operate profitably. He spoke at the annual performance signing ceremony for specific entities for this year.
The task is therefore for you to operate profitably and efficiently, and by so doing, expand your scope of operations so that you can employ many more people. I'm hopeful that by the end of each fiscal year, every specified entity that has signed this compact with government will be able to achieve these objectives. You must also focus on your supply chain activities by involving Ghanaian entrepreneurs to spur the micro, small and medium-scale enterprises MSME sector in order for more and more young people to be employed.
At the end of 2019, figures from the Finance Ministry revealed that Ghana recorded an accrued net loss of over 500 million cedis due to non-profitability of state-owned enterprises. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta is therefore worried that the continuous underperformance of public enterprises, if not tackled, will further derail government's attempts at improving the economy.
As of the end of 2019, an aggregate net loss of 586.49 million Ghana cedis was recorded in the SOE sector. This compares to a loss position of 188.9 million Ghana cedis in 2018. Indeed, between 2015 and 2019, SOEs have consistently posted negative operating margins, an average of around 10%, suggesting that generally operating expenses across the state enterprises are rising faster than revenues.
Director General of the State Interests and Governance Authority, Stephen Asamoah Boateng, says his outfit is undertaking a review of all public enterprises and will soon make a determination on those that should be handed over to private individuals or listed on the stock exchange.
Then there are those that we don't have the money, but private sector can bring in money, can also bring in the expertise. Then we do joint venture. Then there are those that we have to sell completely through the stock exchange. So we are working with the Ghana Stock Exchange and identify some of the entities. We've already identified 8 of them, and we begin to go to float them on the stock exchange. Ghanaians can also buy into it. And then with the private participation, they will be put on their toes as well.
Organized labor has justified why it agreed on 4% increase in base pay for public sector workers. The Secretary General of the Trades Union Congress, Dr. Yalban, said economic challenges affected by the COVID-19 pandemic was a contributing factor, hence the need to accept the increase in conditions.
That during the agreement period 2021-2022, government shall not declare any public sector worker redundant. All the over 700,000 public sector workers will keep their jobs, no matter the state of the economy and government finances over the agreement period. Ongoing discussions on various social media platforms indicate clearly that workers are understandably unhappy with the outcome of the negotiations. We here, as your leaders, are not happy either. But we settled on the relatively low rates of increments reluctantly after intense negotiations spanning many meetings and many weeks.
Ranking member on Parliament's Finance Committee says the Akufo-Addo government is responsible for 60% of the country's current public debt if data gathered up to 2020 was used. Speaking on the first edition of Policy Dialogue on the Economy, organized by the minority at the University of Professional Studies on Monday, Kesel Atufor-Singh said out of Ghana's public debt of 291 billion cedis as of December 2020, President Akufo-Addo's tenure accounts for 171.22 billion cedis, representing 60% of the total debt stock.
Sustainability ratios portrays a worrying picture of the sustainability of Ghana's debt and should be of great concern to Ghanaians. The IMF Debt Sustainability Analysis, the DSA, in the year 2019, and this is before COVID-19, put Ghana at a high risk of debt distress, and this is before COVID-19. This is before COVID-19. The situation by the end of the year 2020 certainly will worsen. But my worry is, using the programmed loans that this government intends to borrow in the year 2021.
Was the National Democratic Congress earlier today talking about the debt distress of the country, which has been a topic for quite a long time. Almost all the political parties have used it against whoever is in government when they are in opposition, but it keeps rising. So tonight we want to have a look at that. But to start with, we want to get back into our trade regulations and our trade laws that are supposed to be protecting the retail industry and small and medium scale enterprises here in Ghana, and in fact Ghanaian businesses. But at the time that after it's in, at the time that we are opening our borders to trade across the continent, should we have some of these ruffles or fights? Tonight, I have in the studio with me the Public Relations Officer to my extreme right of the Ghana Union of Trade Association, Mr. Joseph Paddy, my very good friend. Good evening and thank you very much for joining us. And then I have Mr. Emmanuel Amuadakwa, who is an economist to my extreme left as well. Thank you very much, Mr. Emmanuel. And then my very own Honorable Kweku Ricketts-Hagan, who is a member of Trade, Industry and Tourism Committee of Parliament. Honorable, thank you very much for joining us tonight. And then we are going to have on Zoom the Deputy Minister of Finance, Honorable John Kuma, join us live on Zoom in the course of the discussion. Of course, he will be speaking on behalf of government and what expectations we should expect from government. So I'll come straight into the studio and begin with Honorable Joseph Paddy about what their issues are. In fact, they have bemoaned the Speaker of Parliament making a statement on the floor of Nigerian Parliament and all of the issues. The issues didn't start today. We have seen you making a lot of arguments right from the time I can remember that Nigerians are infiltrating our domestic market. A lot of, not Nigerians alone, other nationals of other African countries are infiltrating our domestic market. what actually is your issue. But hold on for me there. I'll take a quick break. When I come back, that's the question to you. We begin straight with your answer.
Accra, commercial capital of Africa, will host the 5th Ghana International Trade and Finance Conference, GITFIC, on the 27th of July 2021 at the Movenpick Ambassador Hotel in Accra at 9 a.m. prompt. This year's theme is Facilitating Trade and Trade Finance in AFCFTA, the role of the financial services sector. The event will host continental dignitaries including AU Commissioner for Trade, Industry and Mining, the Governor of the Central Bank of Ghana, the Governor of the Central Bank of Francophone West Africa, the Governor of the Central Bank of Francophone Central Africa, Director General of WAMI, ECOWAS Bank for Investment and Development, the African Development Bank, Ghana's Commissioner for Insurance and several others within the trade and finance space of Africa's economies. The 5th International Conference will be opened by His Excellency Dr. Mahamadou Bawumia, Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, and moderated by Mr. Prince Moses, General Manager, Asasi Radio. Critical and urgent continental issues on the Pan-African payment and settlement system within the AFCFTA and others will be discussed with apt solutions to influence regional and continental policies. Proudly sponsored by the Bank of Africa, the Bank of Ghana, GIZ Support Project for the AFCFTA and Asasi Radio. Visit www.gitfic.com to learn more and stay tuned in to Asasi Radio for more updates.
Logo the bottom. Wait, you say local channels now. As a picture see clear. They are 5 times better. As other channels that could be your hormone. So when I mention someone tell me why. Oh, what a pictures.
Who knows
tomorrow? What a picture. Could you AD plus decoder or multi TV and now electoral agent PR natural local channels now HD the here so better
*879#
numbers from people box and now the advert AD channels now.
Get an HD Plus decoder from now till the 9th of August for just $89.99 Ghana cedis and enjoy 3 months free subscription. Enjoy all the excitement and live sports action in the HD Plus Air Bosso Feely promo. Promo lasts from 7th June to 9th August 2021. Visit hd-plus.com.gh or call 024-243-9872 for more info.
Half a nose for good things.
From the break, so the discussions begin right away, and I was on a point that you have raised a number of concerns, particularly including the rules of origin and all that. I would allow you a few minutes to make your case now, and then we can take it from there.
Yes. Thank you very much, and let me say good evening to your cherished viewers. Yeah, it's truly so. There was this exacerbated tension between the trading community and then our parliamentarians, especially what happened in Nigeria when the Speaker of Parliament went and assured Nigerians that they are going to review the GIPC Act so that it will enable Nigerians to come and do retail business. And we thought it's an unfortunate statement that he made, and it's not a welcome news to the trading community. Why we're saying that is that we've been doing business with these foreign partners, and the rules of engagement is there. And the rules of engagement is that if you are a foreigner and want to engage in retail, bring 20 skilled Ghanaians, bring $1 million, invest into the country, and that rules of engagement is there. Even ETLS, ECOWAS Trade Liberalization Scheme, they also have a rules of engagement. Otherwise, you see another country comes on block to come into your economy. That's why ETLS says that if you want to engage in retail business in a product, the product must come from your country, but you don't import to bring to another country. So, and then they were also looking at rules of origin, where the input that you put into that, otherwise somebody will go and buy a phone, just come and repackage it and come and sell it. It's a production. So these are some of the things we've put in place to make sure that we have these rules of engagement, and then so that every country can, in every country there's an area of restriction. Every country has some policy of restriction when it comes to trading. Even Nigeria, almighty US, there are some trade restriction policies. Even the WTO is struggling to fight against those ones. You see, and we talk about trade liberalization. But then when you go to any country, you adhere to their policies and the programs. So when the speaker said he was going to review the act, as it stands now, we don't know which area of the act is going to review to enable another group of people to come and engage in retail business here. So, and they said they were looking for Friendship Act. And we were saying that, so are you going to do a set of act for almost every country in West Africa state? Yeah, we have ECOWAS. But in recent time, you know what happened in Nigeria? They closed their borders for 2 years. Where was ECOWAS? When our people were traveling with their goods, perishable commodities were stuck at the port, at the border. As I'm talking to you now, yesterday I got a call that because of the activities or the decision that Nigeria took, Benin is also taking the same decision. So even goods on transit, Benin will tell you to pay duty before you bring it to Ghana. So this is a difficulty and the challenge we are facing. So we are saying that we are not saying no foreigners should come and engage in retail business, but when you come, play by the rules of the game. We have retail people in the country. I don't want to do advert for anybody.
Playing by the rules of the game will still encourage some form of dumping, which you are preventing.
Yes.
If they pay the $1 million, if they do the necessary registration, they can still dump.
You can't dump because they are talking about rules of origin. The product must come from your country. That's why I say if you want to engage, every product you are bringing must be produced from your country. So the product, but what we see is that people import from Asia and they come and dump it here. So if you are coming from Nigeria to come and engage in retail business here, that product must come from that country. Then, but if you want to go into the $1 million range, that one, the laws give you the opportunity to do so. So, and there's a way of checking dumping too, which those GIPC has taken care of that. So we are not fighting Nigerians, we are saying foreigners.
You are fighting the speaker and you are fighting parliament.
The civil debate was an unfortunate statement because I remember when you
are fighting the trade committee.
When we were enacting the act, the 865, there was a stakeholder engagement. We went to Dodowa Forest for about 4 or 5 days. They were all there. I remember Titus Glover was there. Muhammad Idrisu was there. Idrisu was there. About 12 parliamentarians here, and I think 12, and we went there for almost a week, and came out with this brilliant law that will protect, because every year, as it stands now, look at our telecos, they are in the hands of foreigners. Look at our banking sectors, they are in the hands of foreigners. Look at the extractive industry, in the hands of foreigners, and we are going to leave trading to the hands of foreigners. What is the point when you hold the political power and you don't have the economic power?
But if you are empowered, I'm coming to honorable, but yes, if you are empowered enough, after it's in place now, after it's supposed to allow free trade, it's supposed to allow borders to ease up on the transportation of goods. And
but one country closes borders. One country closes borders to the ECOWAS state.
So that is what we should be promoting, and you are there fighting the parliament.
Yeah, we said.
Speaker says this is what we want to promote because after it's in place.
Yeah, but after
have you engaged them?
No, we wrote to Parliament. We've not got a response yet, but we believe they will respond to it. But even before then, before he was going to do the announcement outside the country, we should have been engaged. That this is what we want to do. What are your inputs?
Honorable. Yes. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Yeah,
Gutta says you haven't engaged them, and you are just placing emphasis on after and opening up our borders, and Speaker is telling Nigerian Parliament that our borders will be open for them to come in.
Thank you very much, and good evening to your viewers and those who are listening to us. I share my brother Mr. Paddy's concerns, and they are genuine concerns. But let me, put on record that what our Speaker of Parliament said in Nigeria was not exactly what has been quoted. I had two of our gentlemen, our ranking and chairman being from the MPP side, and then our ranking being from the minority side, traveled with the Speaker to Nigeria, upon the invitation of the Nigerians. And they have both said that the Speaker did not say that. Yes, an issue of reviewing our act, the GIPC Act, is something that has been in the works for quite some time. Yeah. The last time the act was looked at was actually in 2013. Yeah. I remember very well, I was Deputy Minister of Finance then. And we haven't looked at this, that's about 8 years now. And things have changed. We have a whole lot of things coming in, different blocks, the after and all those things coming in. You see, I understand where you are coming from. And obviously want to be able to protect, retail trading that should be, the forte of Ghanaians. We should be able to protect jobs that should be for Ghanaians. Just like it's done, everywhere else. But when you sign up to this kind of agreement, being in a community and all that, it's a give and take. You cannot want to be part of a trade liberalization and at the same time be a protectionist. You have to get a balance. The reason, and the Speaker did not say that he wants to review the act so that
to favor Nigerians.
Yes, to favor Nigerians. That is not what he said. But the issue of reviewing the act is something that we all think that it's actually due. Reviewing an act does not mean that we are going to make changes in the act, but we are making sure that the act we have at the moment conforms to the international or the African agreement that we are signing. As I said, if you go and sign something, you've got to know what your domestic laws are. It's not Nigerians or the ECOWAS who will come and basically review our trade laws for us. These are sovereign laws, and it needs to be looked at by Ghanaians. But we are out there signing agreement with ECOWAS after and all these things. You've got to look at it in terms of...
does it mean we haven't thought of the processes enough? We are still an agricultural economy. We are still a fledgling economy. We are now coming up. Haven't we gotten to the stage where we are able to sign these agreements? We still have a lot of these SMEs around which we need to protect. Yeah. We still have a lot of startups which we need to protect. We haven't protected them yet, but we are signing these agreements. In fact,
the story is actually the same across Africa. We are all generally a commodity-based, agriculture-based economy. And we don't add value to a lot of things that we do. We have started doing that, and I believe that we'll be able to move fast enough with all the 1D, 1F and things that we've been talking about. But things have not moved the way they should. So yes, if you are going to enter into an international agreement, or you're going to allow other people to come into your market, as I said, in a liberalized market, then you've got to make sure that you can compete. Exactly. If you cannot compete, then there's no point. And at the moment we are signing an agreement with the UK as they came out of the Brexit.
Exactly. We have recently done the EU.
Yeah, absolutely. So all these things we need to get up to speed. Otherwise, you can send all this international agreement. People will come and take advantage.
Let's come back to you, the politicians. You are not empowering. I'm still asking the same questions. You are not empowering the local economy enough to be able to compete. If we have to now sign all of these agreements and go on the tangent of competition with other countries, other economies that are also signing on, are we able to compete? You, the leaders of the country, empowering the system enough?
I agree with you that we have not empowered the economy or the participant in the economy well enough to be able, as I was telling you, that if you are signing an agreement, you've got to be sure that you can compete. If you cannot compete, there are always people who are bigger than you or stronger than you. So they will come and use the same laws that you have signed. So it is important that this GIP Act is reviewed. We are talking about GIP 2013.
It needs to be reviewed.
It needs to be reviewed. Yeah. 865. Yeah. To be precise. We need to look at it, but review does not necessarily mean that we are going to change in favor. And the Speaker absolutely did not say that.
So that is a clarification. I'm coming to you, Mr. Emmanuel, but I understand that we have the video of the Speaker, just about 30 seconds or so. Kindly indulge me, let's have the video and hear the Speaker, what he actually said, and then I'll come back to you whether it's actually a necessity to review the Act, looking at the strength of the economy now.
Trade in the Ghanaian market.
Recent and emerging security imperatives necessitate that while we seek to deepen cooperation among citizens of our two countries, we must not fail to prevent opportunists from taking undue advantage of loopholes in our systems that might tend to jeopardize the economic fortunes of our respective countries.
Meanwhile,
Take again.
Among citizens of our two countries, we must not fail to prevent opportunists from taking undue advantage of loopholes in our systems that might tend to jeopardize the economic fortunes of our respective countries.
Right, so that's the Speaker of Parliament, Honorable, exactly as you said.
Yeah.
It's in your ears. That's in the local parlance we would say. But that's it. It's about promotion of trade between the two countries. Absolutely. And not allowing miscreants to take undue advantage of our economies. In fact, the two countries, Ghana and Nigeria. Mr. Emmanuel, let me come to you now. As an economist, Honorable suggests that we may have gone ahead of ourselves to sign the AFCFTA Act and all of that. Our economies are not empowered enough.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. When we talk about trade liberalization on the continent and in the sub-region, it's very imperative that member states know what they are signing up to. And so even before, after, there was ETLS, as Paddy referred to, that sort of set the rules for engagement amongst ourselves. So now we have AFTA on the block. But what we have to be mindful, I'm going to mention 3 things that as a country or member states should be mindful of. The first thing is about the sovereignty of states. That as Ghana, as Nigeria, as Kenya, as South Africa, we are sovereign states and we can make the rules that we want to make. And linked to that is our national interest. Why will GIPC put a law that says that the retail sector should be reserved for the Ghanaians? It means that it is in our national interest to protect retailers. And the third thing will be the legitimacy of the institutions that we set up, i.e. ECOWAS, i.e. AU, and through the other bodies like the AFTA Secretariat that is supposed to make sure that these rules and regulations do work. I believe that it's about time that not only Ghana, but African countries should know what they are signing up to. It is basically the same challenge if we go to Kenya. I was having a lecture this afternoon, and that same question came up, that if you come to Kenya, the indigenous are, as what we see in Ghana, the retailers are also apprehensive of foreigners doing business. So it is not only in Ghana, but it's about time that we have to make laws that will be in sync with our national laws. So if you have in one breath the GIPC Act that seeks to protect retailers, but you also have in another breath have signed on to an international agreement that says that liberalize trade. That means that there is no coherence. That is why I believe that this is the time that African countries should be able to look within their national laws what must be sacrificed in order to go into this agreement.
But the traders are saying no to it entirely.
Two reasons. It is about fear and it's about competition. If you look at Ghana's economy,
losing their businesses, losing their jobs, government not protecting them.
If you look at the environment of doing business in Ghana, how do you expect somebody who is borrowing at 28-25% to compete with somebody who is borrowing below 10%? It means that to start off, there is no competition. And these are the issues that our macroeconomic indicators should be able to be favorable, so that businesses can thrive and thrive well, so that they'll be able to compete effectively with international businessmen. I believe that local economy should be able to work at getting it right, in putting their economy in the right shape, so that they will be able to compete effectively with businesses on the continent. The other thing is about fear. Because if you look at this Ghana's economy now, it looks like virtually all the sectors are dominated by foreigners. And so if they are in his comment, he will say that retail business is left for us. If you leave retail business, then we don't have an economy. And it's true. If you go to telco, if you go to banking, if you go to insurance, if you go to steel, aluminium industry, all these companies are owned by
largely
by foreigners. And so you see that in your economic analysis, you say Ghana has grown by what percent, but how many indigenes were able to benefit from this growth? And this is why I always make the comment that managers of our economy should be able to look at answering the difficult questions of addressing the bottlenecks to businesses, so that businesses can compete. Because if you go into AFTA, instead of you having a 31 million market to trade, to sell to, now you have 1.2 billion. And it's a great opportunity. But how then do you take advantage of it? You have to be competitive in terms of your pricing, in terms of how you source your commodities, in terms of how you borrow or you go for credit to do your business. And I think we should be able to look at these issues so that the trading community will be comfortable when we are opening up. Because all countries cannot get it right before we open up. We have to open up. But in opening up, you should look at addressing the bottlenecks to businesses.
And the procedures by which we are opening up. Honorable, you have been a finance minister before, so I'll come to you for the last point. But he mentions fear. And he mentions interest rates particularly. How do we go through all of these? I'll come to you on that. So let me take his view on that. But briefly, so that we can still discuss the budget, which is coming up on Thursday. You have the fears.
I think he said it all. Let's even put the fear aside. But we are not competitive in the first place. From day one.
But that's the whole of the African economy, not just Ghana.
Yeah. Oh, but let's.
So we are all running at.
Even in the West Africa sub-region, we are the highest interest rate payers. We borrow at the rate of 23, 24, 25%, and you can even get some of your ECOWAS member states borrowing at the rate of 15%. So you are not in the first place. You are not competitive. So if you open up and you say let's play the fair game, we can't compete with such people. That is why even our so-called, we call them our big brothers, they have something they call prohibition list. It's about 45 line items, and they are saying that if you are the president of the world, you can't bring this product to our country. Why?
These are for the indigenous.
For the indigenous, they are trying to protect the indigenous. And recently when they closed the border, I was part of the team that went to Abuja. You know what the foreign minister said? He said there's an activity at the border between Benin and Nigeria, and it's hurting the economy. So they've closed. Meanwhile, ECOWAS said free movement of goods, persons, and services, but they've closed. They've taken that decision. That bold decision, because till we're talking now,
they are not hosting after. We have the headquarters of
our
so they can we champion the agenda of liberalizing trade across.
Yeah, but in trying to liberalize our economy and open up, we must be mindful about our sovereignty, so that people will not take, like the speaker said, take undue advantage over the.
But you agree that there should be review.
Review is
not necessarily to favor other countries.
But the review should not be progressive review. That's what we're looking at. It's important we do review, but what is that we do review? Even in the act, it's there. At a certain point in time, there must be review. Yes, by this job that is preserved for Ghanaians, we should review those areas. Maybe we should add on, yes, to protect the local indigenous.
Honorable, we are looking at the primary issue of job creation. We are looking at the primary issue of empowering the economy, letting people individually be empowered. And there is an issue of fear as a race, an issue of taxes, issue of interest rates that are hurting us. How do we compete?
Let me draw a quick analogy to this. When you go to some countries, and in most recent times, South Africa, where you have the indigents afraid of foreigners coming to their country to take their jobs, it's pretty much the same. If the economy is not creating enough jobs, if the economy is not looking after its people, then in the end, they are always going to blame somebody who has just come in, that the person has taken their jobs. If we are not protecting our traders, if we are not building an economy that we will feel the fear factor will be out of it, then we're always going to be in the cycle where we are afraid of The interest rate is an issue. Obviously, as I said, when you go into this agreement, you have to be able to afford to be competitive. But there are some countries in Africa that are more competitive than others, just as you have, some outside. So we need to be able to be competitive. When you are signing the agreement, you should also have at the back of your mind the things that you are going to put in place to put you in a position that will make you competitive, to be able to take advantage. Otherwise, we've signed AGOA, all these agreements.
A number of them.
That in the end, you realize that we are not benefiting from it. Because the giant that you have signed the agreement with knows exactly what they've signed the agreement for. Interest rate, of course, we know is quite high.
Too much, 23%, 24%.
We are not able to, you won't be able to borrow money to compete with somebody who is bringing goods from outside in. I don't want to mention, look, we are just looking at Nigeria, to some extent China. There are other players in our system that if we don't pay attention to, they bring the 1 million or whatever you are looking for, but they are gradually taking over the market. Go to the Sprinters Road and you see what is happening.
The number of years, I see.
And if we are not careful, we will get to a point where, my brother rightly said, you are talking about growth, but growth for who?
For them.
Okay, but not us. You have a situation.
You make a point. When you use the Sprinters Road, you see a number of Indian shops, you see a number of Lebanese shops, you see a number of
this is nothing against Indians.
Of course. Yeah. This is a discussion for the purposes of our discussion, but not controlled by Ghanaians, as you say.
But our policy is what we need to make sure that we have policies that basically makes us competitive. We have policies that has a lot of local content in it. Okay, these things have been done elsewhere. Why do you think Nigerians got oil billionaires and all that? They started after the Biafra War, where they made a decision that every oil company in Nigeria will have a local content. Therefore, people who have the capacity and the ability to go into this industry. Yes. So we need to look at this, not only at the, we should not get to a situation. He made a statement that I felt very sad about. That now the small retail that we have is also going to be taken away from us. And it's really very sad that, if that is all that we are left with, then sooner than later we will be in serious trouble. Right. So we need to look at our exchange interest rate regime. We need to look at our taxes. We need to look at the incentives that if we are entering into some of these agreements, we use those incentives to help our people to be in a position to compete. So I do share their concern, but I think that the review is important, because if we don't do, the review itself will bring awareness to some of the shortfalls that we have. But if we cover it and say we have laws there, they should follow it.
Get into the ditch without looking at
these laws have been there for years, and what is happening is happening. So we need to review it, to bring it to the attention, and we, the policymakers, need to begin to think, if we are going to change laws, then who are we changing the laws for? As Honorable Speaker Bagbin said, we need to have laws and policies that favors us as partners, but not favoring one side. And I think my brothers and sisters, Guta and other places, should relax and rather come on board, because we cannot do this without them. If they walk away from it, then we can never touch these things that will help them. If you are at the dining table, that's when you will eat. Otherwise, you're going to pick up the crumbs. So they need to come to the table. They need to engage us. Very soon, I think Parliament, because I serve on the committee, and I know that we are setting up a meeting to meet you. Very soon, that meeting will happen. So we can dialogue. It's about dialogue, not about walking from each other.
You seem to be very hopeful now, listening to the Honorable Member of Parliament. The way you are nodding, you are happy now.
No, it's not that I'm hopeful.
Now, the things you complain about are going to be set in place.
These are issues that have been with us for
some time,
a number of years now. We've done some work. We only not speaking to media report, but we've done some work in the past for other institutions, looking at our tax regime, looking at bottlenecks to businesses and all that. And I believe that these are some reports we can make available to the committee.
We will be able to look, neither you nor us can bury our head in the sand and think that when you take it out, our problems will have gone away. The only way we can do this is to dialogue, to engage.
Honorable, they complain about the engagement. Yes. I mean, you are sitting here talking about it. They said that when you went to Parliament, when you went to the Nigerian Parliament, you didn't engage them. But kindly indulge me. This is the bottom line. We say business at the speed of thought. We have been discussing trade and what the Honorable Speaker of Parliament said in Nigeria. We have cleared that it wasn't as has been speculated or put in the media. Unfortunately, because of time, we are going to take a few minutes to critically look at the budget, which is coming up on Thursday. Hopefully, if the Minister of Finance is strong enough, he will mount the podium or the chamber in Parliament to read the mid-year budget to us. You remember that the 2021 budget early this year was read by the Honorable Leader of the majority side of Parliament because the Minister of Finance was indisposed. What is your expectation? How is the economy looking like for you? Do you have something in your pocket? I mean, a lot of things have been said about the macroeconomic indicators. But how is the micro faring? I would like to start with you as an economist. I mean, you have followed the trajectory. Sure. And from the academic point of view, people think we are heading for doom. Others think we are in very good times, but for COVID, we would have been on top of the houses and everything. Yeah. How is it looking like?
Let me state, my first point is going to be that we cannot blame COVID for all the challenges.
We cannot blame COVID?
For all the challenges we have had, especially on the fiscal side. And I say that because of data I'm sitting on. We did some work in analyzing Ghana's fiscal, looking at the revenue side and the expenditure side in the past 10 years. And what we have seen is that we are not mobilizing enough in terms of revenue. At the same time, expenditure is going up. What it means is that you are going to have a balloon deficit. Coupled with that is what we are seeing as our public debt. Before 2000 and even the early 2000s, we went for relief at HIPIC. Our debts were cancelled. But from that time, even from 2004 to about 2000 and even 2020, we've seen that there's been a spike in our public debt in terms of accumulation and in terms of comparing it to our GDP. Basically because you are not raising enough revenue. Once you are not raising enough revenue to cater for your expenditure, you have to borrow. And that's what we have seen over the past few years. As I speak to you now, the 2021 budget, government wants to raise about 72 billion Ghana cedis. Exactly. In terms of total taxes and grants, as against an expenditure basket of 113 billion. That means that you have a deficit of around 41, 42 billion. You have to fill. You have to go to borrow externally or domestically. And all these two facets have risk. If you are borrowing externally and your currency is not performing, you end up paying more for your debt. If you are borrowing domestically, what it means is that you want to crowd out the private sector. So that is where we find ourselves as a country. I believe that before COVID has exacerbated our fiscal space, but before COVID, we were not raising a lot of revenue. And I think it's about time that going into 2024 in the medium term, if we want to achieve that buoyant economy, if we want to see that resilient economy, we have to look at the fiscals.
So, well, let me leave it at that. I hope I'll still have time to come to you.
Yeah.
And because the NPP, we don't do politics on business here, but the NPP had spoken a lot about increasing productivity and cutting down on taxes. Yeah. So that, I mean, what you talk about will be met, but have you seen that yet?
Yeah, we saw in the first budget of this government in 2017, whereby there was a review of a number of taxes.
Yes, most of them.
So that we move from taxation to productivity. But for us to achieve that productivity level, what must go into it? You have to look at the ease of doing business. And we have talked about how interest rates are high. We have talked about the bottlenecks that businesses are facing. I believe that for us to get it right, we have to start from generating a lot of revenue. If you are not generating more, then you will not be able to use it on your expenditure. And we have to look at some of the regulation. I believe that Honorable is here. One of the things that I look forward to in the budget is the progress report on our exemption bill. We are in a country that we are not generating a lot of we are not generating a lot of revenue, but in the same time you are giving a lot of exemptions, and a lot of them are also going to foreign businesses. How many Ghanaian companies have benefited hugely from these exemptions? And once Honorable is here, maybe he will be able to update us on the review of the exemption bill, because if you look at the 10-year comparative analysis of how exemptions as compared to GDP now, it means that it's risen so high, and we have to look at some of these things so that we'll be able to generate the revenue needed for us to embark on our expenditure.
Because of time, Joseph, let me come to you, and I will give the rest of it to Honorable, because I mean, he's been in Parliament. He will be in Parliament on Thursday, and they have also made a press conference just this morning. Let me come to you. For you, from the industry perspective, what are you expecting?
Yeah, he's touched on one of the things we're going to talk about. That's the exemption and the abuse of it.
The abuse of the exemption.
The abuse of the exemption. It's extremely high. If we were to cut down on the abuse, we're going to generate a lot of revenue to develop this country. And one of the things we also saw that most times, even BOG comes with a reference rate. I think they maintain it for the fourth time, but it doesn't have effect on the interest rate. Reference rate is about 13 point something now, but still, anytime they review it downward, still, interest rate is still where it is. So, what is motivating the commercial banks not to review their interest rate for downwards for businesses? So one of the major concerns of trading community, we know we're looking for affordability of funds and liquidity to do business. But as it stands, so one of our major concerns is the interest rate, and coupled with BOG reference rate compared to that of commercial banks' interest rate. Anytime Bank of Ghana review their rate, it doesn't have direct effect on the interest rate. And we don't know, and BOD is the one supposed to monitor the activities of these commercial banks. And I don't know why they are not biting. I don't know what they, once upon a time they said is as a result of risk factors, risk asset, house numbers and telephone numbers. Now we are in the digital world that you can even locate an ant wherever he is. So what is motivating that? And it looks like the commercial banks are milking trading community, and it's not.
They are reporting huge profits. Right? I don't know if you have monitored recently how much profits they are making.
The dividends that they are declaring for themselves.
Right. Let me come to you now, Honorable. You are in Parliament. A press conference happened this morning, and you talked about the debt stock rising so much. What are you expecting? Are you expecting solutions to the debt stock rising? Are you expecting explanations from last year's the impact of COVID and all that?
First of all, I hope I could get your message to the finance minister before Thursday.
I'm sure they will get it. In fact, we were supposed to get.
Or maybe he's probably listening to us.
Yes. We are supposed to have
I was with him this morning.
Yes. Right. I think our technology is feeling.
Okay. So probably he's listening.
Yes.
So Honorable, when you are listening, please, you have between tomorrow and 2. But on a more serious note, and we have to be very dispassionate when you are discussing it. I'm glad I'm on your stage here, where politics is not actually discussed.
Yes, exactly.
There are 2 things that is a big challenge for us at the moment, and that is our deficit, the 2 Ds, our deficit and our debt. Now, COVID affected pretty much every part of the world. I don't think any corner of the world was actually spared. But if you want to look at the economy, then you have to segregate pre-COVID and then post-COVID. Pre-COVID will be looking at our numbers or our indicators around 2019 and then look at 2020. You will actually realize that the trend is actually in the same direction. Maybe it was worse in 2020 than in 2019, but the direction we were heading
was already negative.
So the economy, you can say, was already on a life support machine before COVID itself came, which is obviously taking the oxygen away completely from us, literally. So these are the things that we need to look at. I mean, a deficit of 15.2% obviously will go down with the right policies, because of the COVID and all that. But when you look at the debt, we were borrowing long before COVID. The numbers you gave, we left in 2016 with 120 billion Ghana cedis, and then at the moment, we are around 91.6 billion.
Right.
Even people believe that, not people believe. From what we've added, this is 20, the bond budget was read. From that time to now, we are heading over 300.
You have actually quoted 306.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what it is, because certain things have not been added. Now, the debt in the direction we are going is not sustainable. If somebody is lending money to you, and the person is making money from you by lending the money to you, he's always happy to lend you money. But when the lender who is lending you money and making profit begins to caution you that the amount of money I'm giving you, myself, I'm scared that you may not be able to pay me. You better pay attention and not brush it under the carpet as it happened with the World Bank and all that. Our debt at the moment is not sustainable. And we've gotten ourselves in a situation where we are not making enough revenue, and it's rightly, we have put in all measures to widen the tax net and all this. Something is not working. And those are the things we need to look at. You cannot continue. See, another problem is that with all these popularist, programs that we came up with, free education, all those things are good, but they need to be funded. If you don't have the money, the British people have something called public sector borrowing, which means that if you have a deficit, you've got to go out there and get the money. Whether you get it domestically or you get it outside, you still have to pay for it. The issue with interest rate will never be in favor of businesses if the government itself is the one in the market doing the borrowing and mopping up all the money. The banks are happy to lend to government. So when you come, before they looking at your risk and all that, government is perceived to be risk-free. When we borrow from government borrow from us, government will pay. No matter what. But Mr. Paddy, when you borrow from us, we can't be sure.
If you fold up, you will
not. Those are the padded risk and all that we have to pay. So all these things we need to look at. When we look at our foreign debt, that's another problem altogether. Because you see, when we compare ourselves to the like of the US and all that, about 70% of the US debt is held by domestic participants. The same ratio of ours
is held by
foreigners.
Right.
So we don't even have control of our debt. So we need to begin to pay attention to basically what is happening in the direction that we're going, that our debt will come to a point that is not sustainable.
You're expecting
and we will very soon, as Honorable Atuforsen eloquently said, within 18 months or something. I remember a few months ago, I published something that government will default, and everybody was, but it is now real. We are just at the cliff. Somebody just need to. Somebody need to tap.
Unfortunately, our time is up.
We are at the cliff. Somebody just need to.
And then we fall into the ditch.
And then we are gone.
Unfortunately, our time is up. Kindly forgive me.
And one thing quickly,
we'll get you back on Thursday for the budget discussion itself. So
quickly on this one,
will get in touch with you.
Just 30 seconds on this one. What we are doing by kicking our debt down the road with all this refinancing that we are doing is eventually going to hurt us and the future generation like yourself. Because most of us are facing up. We are borrowing for you to come in.
So, Honorable Kwaku Brekete is a former Deputy Minister of Finance and current member of Trade, Industry and Tourism Committee in Parliament. Honorable Joseph Paddy is a PRO, a Ghana Union of Traders Association, and my very good friend, I almost called him Doctor, Mr. Emmanuel Amoa Dakwa is an economist. They all joined us on the show this evening. Unfortunately, we couldn't get Honorable John Kuma to join us. My name is Kwesi Afriye. Thursday, we'll meet for the budget discussion itself. So you want to stick and stay with Metro TV. Good evening.